How going everyone? Sasuke Uchiha here. Welcome back to the channel. And of course, for those of you Naruto and Boruto fans out there who may not be aware, even though I'm not sure how you would not be aware, but the Boruto manga has returned with a fresh coat of paint. Boruto to Blue Vortex. And of course, when it comes on to this new manga, it has finally happened, the Boruto time skip. And with that comes new power levels. And discussing with me the matter or the topic of how strong is Boruto Uzumaki now today. We have the man, the myth, the dreamer, Mello.
Yo, what's up? What's up? I'm your humble host, Mello, signing in. Happy to be here. I appreciate you inviting me. Talk some Boruto.
Of course, man. Respect for coming out too, man. I know it was kind of, well, not really sudden notice, but enough notice.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Happy to do it.
Yeah. So before we get into it, man, just your general thoughts on the chapter before we get into it.
Yeah, I thought the chapter was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I'm a huge Naruto Uchiha fan, and to have them start the chapter off with that character,
Yeah.
particularly how they dealt with her in part one towards the end. You know, we got the Mangeki, of course, but you know, just to see her start things off in the time skip, not Boruto, not Kawaki, not anyone else, her, I thought that was pretty cool. And I really enjoyed her character arc, as well as seeing like what Himawari's up to. Just seeing what the dynamic in Konoha has been after part one's end.
Yeah.
And just seeing a world without Naruto in it was pretty interesting as well. I like the pacing as well. I thought that was really cool, how they just kind of went in. They didn't kind of hold things back. They got to the action relatively quickly and left off on a pretty big cliffhanger that I think has a lot of people excited. So for pacing, that's a W. And I think for me, just getting beyond everything else, I think the hype and anticipation for the time skip really came through. Seeing Boruto step on Code's face, or you know, the Claw Grimes attack, and who's going to destroy Konoha? What's going to happen? Find out next time on Boruto Ballsy. So I thought all that came together to create a fantastic chapter. So I gave it a 10 out of 10. It wasn't perfect, but it was still good.
Yeah, totally feel them. Basically, I feel the same about the chapter. Persons here who are watching, I'm sure they've been watching your streams. They've seen my reaction review stream as well, so they know our thoughts in depth. But onto the topic at hand. Like, of course, Boruto is a battle shonen, and we both know from our experience watching anime over the years, the longer battle shonens go on, the more the power levels have to go up, the more the threat level has to go up if the author doesn't come up with a creative way to, you know, introduce new antagonists. But in this case, when it comes on to Boruto, it kind of falls into the cliche where the power levels have to go up. So the question now is that, of course, this has to apply to the main character, Boruto Uzumaki himself. So the question I think a lot of persons are going to be asking, apart from, will Code ever not suck? is how strong is Boruto? But I want to kind of separate it into two parts, man. I want your opinion in terms of how strong do you think base Boruto is versus, say, full power Boruto right now, because I think persons would love to even separate it into those two different categories right there.
Right. So for me, I think base Boruto is an interesting read, because when you take a look at Boruto, he comes from Uzumaki lineage and Hyuga lineage. So one would imagine he would have like this immense chakra pool at his disposal, but he doesn't seem to have that. Now, I do have my theories about that, but just sticking with the canon, he doesn't seem to have that, right? And Himawari seems to have this like immense hidden power, so it's a little odd with him. So he always kind of reminded me of a Kakashi in a sense, to where he was like this big brain genius for a moment, and he just didn't have the stamina to back it up, right? I think Kakashi even compared him in base to himself, where Boruto, instead of going big with his Rasengan, he had to compress it down and go smaller out of necessity. So he's always been very skilled, very big-brained individual, but when it came to that power pool, not really so much. So he doesn't have a lot to work with. He works really good in teams, like a Kakashi. Now we fast forward a little bit, and we know that he was killed by Kawaki during the Code arc towards the end of it, and then he came back because of Momoshiki. And he made a statement that I found to be really interesting. He said that he had better control over Momoshiki's powers, or he felt that he did.
Yeah.
So that to me was pretty interesting in and of itself. And then you look at what Momoshiki describes in the manga that he did for Boruto. He took his own genetic material, that being Momo's, from the karma, and then he turned it into Boruto's genetic material. However, because it was originally Otsutsuki, it's still considered Otsutsuki, and that's how Boruto becomes a pure Otsutsuki god. So basically, Boruto and base should have more access to Momoshiki's power, number one.
Yeah.
And then number two, his base chakra should have increased by 18%. I do believe that was the number, 18%. He was around 82% at the time. So his base chakra should have increased by 18% of Momoshiki's because of the rewriting.
Yeah.
So that should give him way more chakra in base than he ever had before. So that alone makes him extremely powerful. And then you fast forward even further beyond that, and he's fighting Kawaki with his karma activated and his dojutsu in base for a brief period of time before he gets the slash mark. And he's also going up against Mitsuki in Sage mode, albeit Momoshiki gave him a warning ahead of time. He dodges the attack, but he does manage to lose Mitsuki, which is interesting because one would imagine in Sage mode you have like sensory perception, and he lost track of Boruto for a moment. That was odd. So that could speak to his speed or whatever the case may be. So I think when you try to scale to Blue Vortex Boruto,
Yeah.
you don't have a lot to work with
Given
as
that
of
it's
the
one
recording
chapter.
of this video.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to go back in the past and kind of try to figure out where he's at in the present. And I think he's pretty. It's difficult. I would say in base, him dodging Code, who is stated to be, this is to Blue Vortex.
Yeah.
Post time skip. He dodges Code's swipe, which is him being stated as someone stronger than Jigen. But then the question becomes, okay, well, is he stronger than Jigen in his unlimited base state? Or is that factoring in him plus karma? It's a little vague with that.
Yes, I get what you mean.
Yeah. So that's just kind of my position with it. I mean, he stepped on Code's face. I think that was a sneak attack.
Yeah.
Personally, he masked his chakra, so I wouldn't really use that too much to scale him. But I would say right now I'm comfortable giving Boruto Kage level easily in base. Now, if you want to argue, like, low, mid, high, that's an interesting conversation. But I don't think he's quite at the levels to where he's like 1v1ing Jigen in base right now. I can't give that to him, but yeah.
All right, fair enough. So I'll give my 2 cents on base before we go to like a hypothetical full power 2 Blue Vortex Boruto. So in base, right? I think I remember on my reaction review stream, I was talking with the guys and I was saying like if I were to like put it at a extreme minimum, I would probably put base Boruto right now at the same level of power that Naruto showed in the last Naruto the movie. So Naruto didn't use any 6 paths powers in that movie, but he used what? Tail Beast mode in conjunction with Sage mode. So I would actually put base Boruto on that level, minimum. I do agree with what you're saying. I know a lot of persons are hyped, especially if they don't like Code, with Boruto coming in, stepping on Code's face. But I think after all the hype is said and done, it more than likely is going to end up being just a sneak attack. Maybe he can, probably with help, kind of fend off Code, but maybe it's going to end up being a case where he can't actually 1v1 him more than likely. But taking into consideration things like him being 100% Otsutsuki now, with 82% being Momoshiki, 18% being his own unique Otsutsuki DNA. I would imagine he should have gotten like a passive buff when it comes on to like chakra reserves, be a strength, speed, etc, etc. And then if I were to really, add on probably 1 full year of training with Sasuke, and then the next 2 years, based on what Code was saying, if we kind of add on some on and off training with Sasuke while they're running, and maybe some clashes with Code, I think putting him on the level of TLB's Siege Mode Naruto from the last Naruto the movie in Beast seems fair.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. No, I do agree that he would get like a passive increase over time, right?
Yeah.
Like chakra is comprised of mental and physical energy. The more he learns and grows, even if he starts to use the true essence of karma, he will learn more from Momoshiki that would
Yeah.
increase his mental energy as well as him just growing into his like more adult body. He's still 15, but better than a 12. So yeah, he would definitely get that. Plus his physical form being Otsutsukified, that could increase his physical energies as well, which would bolster his overall chakra. So I do agree with that. It gets a little dicey trying to narrow down like specifics, of course, but just generally, I would say I think that's a good little place to start with him. I really want to see more. I'm super
Yeah.
excited to see because I mean that's a hell of an entrance, you know, stepping on his face. That in and of itself, even though that's not necessarily like a power or stats based thing that you can use to scale him, it's just that ability is pretty broken outside of anyone who isn't, you know, an Otsutsuki. So
Yeah.
that in and of itself gives him a huge advantage over people to be able to vanish in combat. Um, so I think it works. I do think it works. I think base Boruto rather. I think we can probably put him. It sounds like maybe you want to have him somewhere around like demigod level.
Yeah, so I have my own crazy rankings where, of course, just bear with me.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
I know. So, of course, the established Genin, Chunin, Jonin, Kage. And then in my own headcanon here, I have like above Kage, I have like Super Ninja. And I have like persons like Hashirama, Madara, like of course pre-Ten Tails. Like TLB Siege Mode Naruto and probably to a lesser extent EMS Sasuke in the war, right? Of course, I have like God level, which would be like the six paths characters, Adult Naruto and Sasuke. Um, and of course, Omega level would be like Damon, Shibai, Ishiki, etc., etc. So really and truly, like a character like yeah, more like yeah. I guess I would put Boruto in my own headcanon of like he's in that super ninja tier, kind of like in Beast, because I
I
think it's
see.
kind
I
of
see.
like a safe space where yeah, you might be questioning him making that type of progress over just 3 years, but at the same time, I'm kind of looking at it from like the narrative standpoint where we can't really start him too low based on who he's up against.
Right.
Because when I think about it logically, okay, you have Code that's stronger than Jigen, fine, that's stronger than Naruto and Sasuke. And if Kawaki's power right now works the way I think it works, with 3 years, I guess it's safe to say he should be like, if I'm taking quite literally, like 80% of Ishiki's power, like in terms of like raw power. So I
Right.
don't think it's a for until we see more. I think the way I've placed him is like a safe space.
Yeah. No. I agree with that. You know, it's a good place to put him from chapter one when he does like two things, and one only you can really only scale him based upon one. So that's you know as of the recording of this video, that's a great place to put him. It's interesting when you take a look at base. It's like okay, well we're gonna exclude like karma shenanigans as much
Yeah,
as we can, obviously. So it's like, do you believe that Boruto with that low amount of chakra got like an exponential increase in chakra, and you know chakra is going to equate to like increasing your stats, so on and so forth. Is it going to be like he learned new jutsu or new techniques? Probably, you know, sword play, so on and so forth. But it's really interesting because on paper I would say no. I don't think Boruto can increase his chakra that much.
yeah,
I think he probably has like a limit, a hard cap like a Kakashi, and that really should limit how much power he has. Maybe you could argue chakra control.
yeah.
He can only fight in short bursts, and then after that is pretty much curtains for him. But
So
again,
you don't think it's a case that from a, I guess, a genetic standpoint, where you have, Hagoromo, and then you have Indra and Ashura, and then, Naruto and the Uzumaki come from Ashura's side. You don't think it's a case just because, say, even though logically that Boruto's Otsutsuki now, he's not going to have like chakra performance on the level of Naruto. You don't feel like it's going to be the case like that?
Oh, absolutely not. Because even in base, like he's not. Even when the Otsutsukification reached 82%, him in base is not God tier. So the karma still gives him access to the power inside of said karma, or his rewritten genetics rather. So we know that in base he needs karma to access Momoshiki's powers. So in base he's just normal Boruto. So what's normal Boruto's peak with those established limitations? Realistically, it should be something around like Kakashi level at like his apex, maybe somewhere around there. But the only wild card for me that I think like in the canon is that he has 18% of Otsutsuki power in base because of him being killed by Kawaki.
Yeah.
So if you can increase that, I think that might be a substantial increase to the point where you can get him to maybe like actual Uzumaki tiers levels of chakra, like a Naruto or something of the sort. But outside of that, I think that's pretty much how I would kind of scale his base. I think being more reserved with it is a safe bet for sure.
Okay, yeah, I agree. All right, fair enough. All right. So I guess the question now is, how strong would a hypothetical full power Boruto be right now? Honestly speaking, since you went first last time, I'll give my 2 cents before you go. And I'm thinking about it, man. Like with that 18%, and then using Karma Stage to, I think I want to keep the potential Jogan out of the conversation for now, from the manga perspective at least. But yeah, so Byakugan, Karma Stage 2, he's tapping into Momoshiki's, genetic material that's, overwritten in his now, plus his 18%. To be honest, man, plus that 3 years of training and any potential, like, I'm looking at it like this as well, because obviously Momoshiki isn't necessarily the type to train. Obviously, that's the story they've been telling us. The Otsutsuki, right? They don't train, clearly. Right. But I'm thinking now is that with Momoshiki's DNA and his latent potential, if you actually put Momoshiki in a training scenario, which of course in this case is Boruto, the things that Momoshiki would have naturally unlocked through training is kind of given to Boruto now. So I'm thinking like a full power Boruto, I think, again, safe space to put him, might just be, I'm tempted to say, probably about Jigen level. Maybe about that. I don't think I would go beyond that, honestly. I know it sounds crazy, but
okay. But that's a little lower than I was expecting, but I got you.
Yeah, I know a lot of persons want to tiptoe into, they're in the Baryon mode and Daemon territory right now, but I think we should give it some kind of buffer space for them to grow right now before anything else. I just think it might be a case where he might be around that level, but he might have like a technique to just, not necessarily hacks, but just enough to make it a bit more difficult for opponents like Ko to just outright beat him with power.
I feel you. Well, I don't want to step on your toes. Do you have any more? Or
no, man, go ahead, man.
About where you have them. Okay, I got you. So I think that's interesting. Yeah, no. See, I think that's fair because again, we don't have a lot to work off of, so you kind of want to temper your expectations, and then give, like you said, give them room to grow. I like that. I would say if I like the path that you were walking. Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
If he has access to Momoshiki's powers, Momoshiki doesn't train, the Otsutsuki should be able to increase their abilities in the same way that humans do, right? By increasing their mental and physical prowess, increase their chakra, increase their stats, so on and so forth. So I think all of that works. It all hinges on how much control of Momoshiki's power Boruto actually has currently, I think. So that gets, that's impossible to really scale. But going back to part 1,
yeah,
he does say that he has more control over his power post-death. So one would imagine It just depends on the focus of the training, right? So I would think the focus would be to utilize the power of Momoshiki as much as possible. But it's interesting. Okay, so I think there's some things that need to be given to Boruto. Okay, let's just say Boruto has Momoshiki's power.
Okay.
I think I can give him that because otherwise, you know, we're really kind of like in the same place. Like he's gotten stronger, his base gotten stronger, but he can tap into like maybe stage 1, perhaps. But other than that, yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm gonna give like high end, low end. So high end, he has Rinnegan,
Yeah.
Byakugan, Shenanigans, Future Sight, potentially if that can be used in combat. The malleable red chakra, potentially if that still is a thing that he can use. I think pretty much it's impossible to cap him if that's the case because he can literally just create chakra peels and consume them and then gain exponential strength. Something like that. Like it's just Momoshiki has so many busted powers that to me would quickly and easily put him over Ishiki if it's written that way. So I'll say at his apex right now, he should easily be beyond Ishiki. He should easily be beyond. It's Momoshiki with 3 years of actual hard training plus his hack-based abilities. And if you want to tackle in Jogan Shenanigans, I did a video where there is an amp that's confirmed from the Jogan when he fights Urashiki in comparison to his base. So there's some stuff there. Right now, Boruto is probably the second strongest character in the verse if you want to give him that. Second to only Damon, I would imagine, with his reflectability if the conditions line up. On the low end, I would say he has access to more of the Karma's power, but he probably doesn't have access to True Essence, which would be the battle tactics of Momoshiki. He might not have access to his Dojutsu, which would be the Rinnegan, the Byakugan. No Future Sight, but he can tap into more of like the physical power, the body of Momo. So I think that could probably work in his favor. In this case, he would just be more power.
Yeah.
And then he would be able to enhance what he already has, which I do think is going to get him narratively. He has to be somewhere around Kawaki, somewhere around Code, who's stronger than Jigen, but probably weaker than Ishiki. See, this gets interesting though, because Kawaki should be stronger than Ishiki right now, maybe.
Maybe.
He's 80%, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing I'm thinking about is that okay, he's 80%, and it's kind of like how hold on. Yeah, it's kind of like how I was thinking about it. If I were to, because a lot of these karma shenanigans, I kind of try to take them super literally. So if you're 80% Ishiki, if you fully tap into the power, I'm assuming you're gonna be 80% as powerful as full power Ishiki. But
Yeah,
I'm
I think that's
thinking,
fair.
yeah. So in my head though, like outside of the 80%, like everything else is just like cyborg, ninja weapon, Kawaki, and whatever ninja training might have done. And I think
Which scales around like base Boruto, because that's
yeah.
what we saw from him. Yeah,
So
in part 1 at least.
to be honest, I think a safe bet might be like Kawaki is actually like 85% Ishiki. I think that's safe.
Okay. That's interesting. Because because if we operate under the assumption, and I think it's a good one, that they're using, that they'll, like he'll take his 80%, this Kawaki, he'll take the 80% and then he'll be able to train in a way that Ishiki would have never done.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're
And
saying.
then he's going to be able to take that 80% upwards, plus you stack on his own stuff. In 3 years, I would be comfortable enough at least giving him a 10% increase, but then the percentages are just so all over. It's just headcanon, make believe land. Yeah, so
it's very vague, man. It's hard to say.
Yeah, but I think from a narrative perspective, the rival Kawaki must push the protagonist Boruto. So I think Kawaki should be at least a little bit stronger than Boruto. Not so much to where it's like a stomp, but just enough to where he can push Boruto's power progression. And also, we do, like you said, need room for improvement and growth. So I definitely don't want to give him like Baryon mode Ishiki levels of power yet. And there still needs to be some conflict between Boruto and Momoshiki that wasn't resolved off panel. We need to see him. It's like, imagine if Naruto just came back post time skip with all of Kurama's powers in check. It's like, I don't like that. Like,
yeah.
I want to see that manifest itself. I think we're owed that. So for me, I would say from a narrative perspective, he shouldn't have access to all of Momoshiki's powers. We should see that on panel, and if that is the case, then I think we should temper our expectations for where he scales, and then also that bleeds over into Kawaki and probably Code as well, because they have to be somewhere relative, it seems.
Yeah, and then
So that's how I would do it.
and then the next thing I'm kind of considering too, even though it's a bit more superficial, is like depending on their strength level and where you could probably put it, we kind of have to be careful with it because depending on where you place it, it would have to, on a superficial level, kickstart Damon's superficial pursuit for, oh, you guys are on my level now. let me just do something with Damon now against these guys, you know?
Right.
So I would.
And something interesting about Damon, really quick.
Yeah.
When he sensed like a power that was higher than his, he reacted to that in kind.
That too.
And Kawaki's in a village. He seems disinterested, and of course, Ada knows where Boruto is, and Kawaki would have pressed her. One would imagine he was jacking her up in part 1. So the fact that he's not pressing her, or she didn't tell him where Boruto has been this entire time, would suggest to me that Damon is still at the very top, the cream of the crop, and he's preventing Kawaki from forcing that information out of Ada.
That makes sense.
Yeah, when Boruto and Code show up, you don't really see any reaction from Damon, like, I sense very powerful people. So I find that interesting. They took the time to show Ada and her Shenanigan, and Damon's not far away from her, so I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility to show his reaction if he had one.
Yeah,
so
true.
I think it's safe to say Damon's still at the very top.
But then again, I think that kind of puts you in a situation to ask now, where would you even put Damon? like, I doubt he has actually trained or anything like that, but I guess pre-time skip, post-time skip, no, it's still a matter of where do you place Damon, and especially in like relation to like say Baryon mode, because of course in relation to that, then you'll have to have a better idea how you could place like Kawaki, Code, Boruto. So, but
I think Damon is stronger for sure than like a Code in part 1. Obviously, like suns him, but there are moments where Code will like teleport away with Bug or something, and Damon dashes towards him, but he's not in time.
Yeah.
So like he's Code with his claw mark teleportation, if you think that amps his speed or whatever, or him is just like his base speed going into the claw marks. I would argue that's probably the case. It's just base speed going into the claw marks.
Yeah.
That means that he's fast. He's able to move faster than Damon is. So I think Damon's stronger, but he's not like substantially stronger in terms of stats, to the point where like he can't like knock him out with a single punch or something. So I wouldn't give him like Baryon mode just yet. I think we can all agree maybe that Baryon mode is like at the apex outside of like Shibai Otsutsuki or something.
Yeah.
In terms of just like power that we've like seen or heard of, potentially. So I think right now amongst, I think there's like 5 people, right?
Yeah.
I think Damon's number 1. I think Kawaki's probably number 2 from a narrative perspective. I'm going to give Code number 3 because last time I saw him versus Boruto, he was stronger than base Boruto.
Yeah.
So I have to respect that. I can't just put Boruto over him because of one chapter. And Boruto's number 4 for me, and then my number 5 would probably be amongst like the new gen or whatever, probably Mitsuki, because he feels confident that he's going to kill an Otsutsuki who has the same powers as Kawaki. So that's kind of like my top 5 right now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, fair
and
enough.
then like Himawari is like a sleeper, right? But she's not really there yet.
Yeah, the Gohan in waiting.
Yeah.
Pretty much. All right, so the next, or maybe even the last 2 things, like we kind of mentioned, well, I had mentioned before, right? You know, your cliche or person that hasn't been keeping up with Boruto, they're, you know, just browsing the interwebs, and, you know, you can make arguments for where Boruto is in relation to, you know, max power like Naruto outside of Baryon mode. And, you know, on average, at the rate we're going, persons are going to be hearing like, oh, Boruto's actually stronger than Naruto now. Like, on average, I think persons are going to be, you know, be putting that out there, and somebody hears this, like, some person are going to call, like, you know, bullshit, basically. Like, do you think the story, like pre-time skip, has done a good job of actually, getting the characters to this level?
Pre-times pre. There's 2 time skip in the franchise.
Well, okay, yeah,
Pre.
Boruto Part 1.
So has Boruto Part 1 done a good job of
uh,
getting
the characters to this level.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. I would say yes, because at the end of the Shippuden, the Otsutsuki were like established through Kaguya. She has, the Ten Tails has like immeasurable nature energy. And then it just goes on to add like other tail beasts and then get like substantially stronger.
Yeah.
And then, Kaguya has like all this chakra, and then she goes on to get like faster and stronger per Black Zetsu's statements later on in that fight. To the point where she's so fast, she makes Naruto and Sasuke look like they're moving still. So I think the Otsutsuki were established to be like them. And then later on, you kind of incorporate the Otsutsuki back again. Now, I think this is a double-edged sword to where they made them seem powerful. They Sun Killer Bee, they're menacing, right? They take out like Naruto at the Chunin exams. And Sasuke and Naruto fight them. It took the 2 of them to beat Momoshiki or whatever, but then they kind of shoot themselves in the foot by having Momo get like defeated by base Naruto's Rasengan. You have Urashiki he's like sunning Gaara and Sasuke, albeit he was distracted. I'll give him that. But then you have Shinki and Boruto seemingly doing better, and it's
all over
very
the place.
odd. Yeah. Yes, it's very, very odd. So on one end, you have like the Otsutsuki that are touted like lore-wise. They have like this presence of being something more than they actually turn out to be. So I would say if you don't look too deeply into like what they actually accomplish, right? Like they're supposed to be 1,000+ years old, and yet and still they're losing to infants relative to their age. Right, that's not very impressive to me. I would imagine in 1,000 years, and if you're gaining power in a more efficient way than they are, you should be substantially stronger than them, to the point where he should play with Naruto and all the Kage and Sasuke and Boruto like children. One pinky, I'm sunning you all, right? But that's not the case. They're relative in 33 years of Naruto's life. He's able to get somewhere near him to the point where he's not getting one-shotted. That's a problem for me. So I think if you dive deep into it, the Otsutsuki are very unimpressive. But on a surface level, just their rep and the way that they're presented, they seem big and grandiose to the point where it makes sense that Boruto would be able to surpass a Naruto who one would imagine is relying on half-breed's, that being Hagoromo's, power to get him to like that level. And then Boruto has like all of a full-blooded Otsutsuki to get him to that level. I think on a surface level that makes sense. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. And honestly, I totally agree. I remember when I believe this would have been after they came back from fighting Ishiki, and we found out that he's 80% Otsutsufied basically. And back then I did a video that like part 2 of my like Boruto is basically stronger than you think. I did 2 videos on that, one way before then and one after then. And I was just saying they use elements of the story in terms of him basically becoming Momoshiki on a genetic level, and it just made sense. 1 + 1 = 22. Like, honestly, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just basic math. Because if we're looking at it literally, and we're saying, okay, probably fuse Momoshiki, okay, Naruto and Sasuke could beat him. Probably a safe place to put full power fuse Momoshiki is like, say, 75% Naruto, right? If we add that 75% to Boruto and then have him train, there's that clear path for him to surpass Naruto. So I don't think it has to be like a long discussion. It's just math. 1 + 1 = 2. There's just enough in-story elements that isn't an ass pull that can be added to Boruto just to give him that path to surpass Naruto. So I think, yeah, I think they did a decent job in actually getting them to this level without it being like oh, the Dragon Ball Super. Why is Android 17 so strong? You know, why are the Universe 6 Saiyans? Like, it's not like that. So I
Yeah.
can vibe with it, you know. Um, so yeah, the only like the last thing I'll say, man, is that, and this is a concern I had pre time skip, like Boruto Part One, in terms of you had like Boruto and Kawaki getting up there in power, and then the concern for me is like everybody else, like your Sarada, your Inashikacho, everybody else. It kind of feels like they're gonna be left behind. And even though I do believe Sarada has gotten stronger, I think the concern is still there. So I don't know how you feel about that, man.
So about the side characters getting left behind, I think I think they're going to be like the representation of like this concept that you're talking about, where you want to give characters space to improve in chapter one, right? Everyone wants to put Boruto and Kawaki beyond Ishiki, beyond Berrymo, beyond Shibai, for God's sakes. So like, what's left for chapter two? So yeah, I think they're going to be the actual manifestation of that concept, to where, I think Sarada obviously got powerful over time. She's an Uchiha. She gained strength through emotions, and she's been highly emotional for 3 straight years. To the point where, excuse me,
Yeah, man.
to the point where at the very beginning of this chapter, she is doing something that is irrelevant, that doesn't make sense. And she later says as much. She's yelling at Shikamaru while knowing that he's under the influence of omnipotence. So she's so emotional, so at her wit's end, that she's just doing illogical stuff 3 years in. So I think that speaks to her power progression as well. And of course, I said this earlier today. Shinki is Kage level at the Chunin exams already. He just doesn't have the experience. So I definitely think this Sarada is Kage level in base, me personally. Low end, high end, like middle, whatever, wherever you want to put her.
I would agree.
Right? I think that's pretty easily the case. So then it's like, okay, well, but that's not where we need her to be, right? And I think with a character like Code, who has like these claw grimes, it's, I think you need to have a villain with like lieutenants and grunts that kind of challenge the side characters and allow them to shine, but not allow them to like fight the main boss like a Code and just get destroyed. I
Yeah.
think we understand that Sarada, she shows up, she kicks the Claw Grimes. Okay, cool. Claw Grimes probably Jonin level. She's around Kage level. It makes sense. But then Code shows up and you can see she's sweating in the same way she was sweating when Damon was a threat to her earlier that chapter.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks to where she scales below Code. So for me, I think if she decides, and I've mentioned this prior, I think she needs to leave Konoha with Boruto. And I think that would be excellent for her power progression, because then she can meet up with Sasuke if he's alive. And
Another discussion.
yeah. And then she can get that Mangekyo Sharingan training that I think she desperately needs. But either way, I think characters like Chocho should be Kage level as well. They're in terms of ninja, we've maxed out, not maxed out, but I think they've reached the apex of this generation's level of power. So now it's like, okay, well, how can they become gods? Well, you have scientific ninja tech. You have mutation through the integration of Shibai Otsutsuki cells or Hashirama Senju cells, some kind of external amplifier that's going to allow them to scale. Hell, it might just be Boruto. He lets him pop a chakra peel, and they instantly scale for a moment. Stuff like that, I think, could absolutely work.
Yeah.
In a shonen battle, a battle shonen, it's less about will they, and it's more about like, okay, well, when they do, how does it happen? But yeah.
Yeah. I totally get you, man. Cause I think at the end of the day, like it's especially harder to really talk about this from the manga perspective, because I've always looked at it and said like, okay, it's only a certain set of characters they'll be focusing on. Yeah, they even show, Inojin, Shikadai, Chocho, but it's more so, oh, when it's kind of relaxed time, maybe they're having a little sparring match over there, and it's only a certain like subset of characters. So it's kind
Right.
of like, will they really focus on, really even involving them per se? And unfortunately, will they end up leaving it to the anime? But that again is another discussion, really and truly. But yeah, the concerns are there, and but at the same time, with all the elements at play, the cloud rhyme code, it would be hard for Kishimoto to not include them. So I think that has to happen. But I think a nice way to look at it is the fact that they didn't even show Amado in the chapter. I wouldn't be surprised if some way, somehow, Amado has made some provisions for other characters, really and truly. Because again, at the end of the day, the core of this video is, how strong is Boruto, but at the same time, Boruto's strength is going to affect other things narratively, and of course, talking about the side cast is going to be relevant in relation to that, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely interesting. Like you said, the manga doesn't really address the side characters too much.
Yeah.
That's more so an anime thing. I think it depends on how you write it, because I do have Boruto going rogue, and I do have certain characters like a Sumire, Himawari, and a Sarada from a narrative perspective. I feel they must leave Konoha to achieve their goals, joining him.
Yeah.
And you can throw Amato in there as well, because he believes that Boruto is Kawaki. And if that is the case, he believes his daughter, Akibi's genetic material is in Boruto's karma. So that's going to bring him to, like, there are certain characters whose paths are they're being led to Boruto, a Sarada, a Sumire, a Himawari, an Amato. And I think that tracks. So if you have, they want to pay homage or, write it in a similar way to where it's the Naruto show, the Sasuke show, the Naruto show, the Sasuke show.
Alternate between it, yeah.
Right. They need to split them, obviously. And then you need to have, so if it's Boruto's story, which we're going to be following, whoever's around Boruto, they're going to get his rub. They're going to get his shine. And vice versa for a Kawaki, Mitsuki, for example, an Ada or a Damon. So it just depends on, okay, we'll focus on these two characters, but like, let's have them have an entourage, and whoever's in that entourage, that's who we're going to focus in on. Primarily. And I think the side characters that are going to get shine are the ones we've been seeing. It's going to be Himawari, Sarada, Sumire, and New Inishikacho, Mitsuki, Ada, Damon. That's kind of our cast of characters. And everybody else, like a Shinki, unfortunately. And Wasabi, Tsubaki, the samurai girl, Denki. They're Metal Leaf, for God's sake. Like, they're not canon at this point, man. They're not even canon at this point. They don't exist,
Yo, honestly, wild, bro, wild. Well, all right, man. Respect for coming out. Any final words you want to say, man?
I'm just excited for chapter 2. Have to wait a whole month. My God, I feel like I've been waiting several months. I have. But I really want to see this 3-way triple threat battle that they've been hyping up.
Yes, sir.
And I hope they get to like the Kawaki versus Boruto sooner rather than later, in the destruction of Konoha. You got Shikamaru as the Hokage. You got all these shenanigans afoot. So I'm very excited. And hopefully Mitsuki shows up. He fights Sarada, and he's trying to get to board, so that could be really cool. There's so many. I think the main thing now is like there's so much possibility, and we're starting something new, and that's exciting. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it is something I think the fan base needed that injection. So I'm excited and looking forward to what comes next.
Alright, respect, man, and thanks for coming out. Gentle people, of course, naturally, check out Mello, the man, the myth, the dreamer. That's their new slogan, man.
I'll take it.
Yeah, man, respect for coming out. Guys, of course, leave a like, comment, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comment section below in terms of how strong do you think Boruto is and how that's going to affect other aspects of 2 Blue Vortex. Of course, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Later.